On a quiet street, a young man noticed his elderly neighbor living in silence and hunger. Even though he barely had enough for himself, he chose to share what little he could. Day after day, he showed up with food, not knowing that his small act of kindness was about to uncover a secret that would change everything. Ethan was just a regular 22-year-old guy, working long hours at the local garage, trying to make ends meet. His clothes were always a little stained with oil, and his wallet always a little too empty. He didn't have much, but he had a good heart, the kind that notices things others miss. One evening, while eating leftovers on his porch, he saw something that stopped him cold. Across the street, his old neighbor, Mrs. Eleanor Green, was digging through her own trash can. At first, he thought maybe she dropped something. But no, she was picking through old containers, looking for food. His stomach turned. This wasn't just sad. It felt wrong. Mrs. Green had always been quiet, kind. She used to grow flowers and wave to everyone on her morning walks. Now here she was, alone, digging through garbage like no one cared. Ethan didn't think twice. He got up, went inside, and split his dinner in half. He walked over and held the plate out. "Hey, thought maybe you'd like some of this," he said, trying to keep it casual. She looked surprised, like she wasn't sure how to react, but she took the food slowly and said, "Thank you, dear." Her voice was soft, almost like she hadn't used it in days. Ethan didn't ask questions. He just nodded and walked back to his porch. But that night, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Why was she living like this? Where was her family? Didn't she have anyone to help her? What he didn't know was that her son, who hadn't visited in years, was a billionaire. Ethan didn't say anything about it to anyone. He just kept showing up every night after work with something in his hands. One day it was leftover stew. Another day, a peanut butter sandwich and a banana. He never made it a big deal. He'd walk up, place the plate on her porch, and head back home without knocking. At first, Mrs. Green would only come out after he left. She'd peek through the curtains, then slowly open the door, like she was afraid it might be a mistake. But she always took the food. And every morning the plate was cleaned and left by the door, ready to be used again. Day after day, Ethan kept it going. No thanks needed, no conversation, just food. But after about a week, something small changed. She cracked the door open before he had even stepped away. "Thank you," she said. Just 2 words, but they meant everything. After that, it got easier. She'd wait by the door sometimes, smiling gently, holding the empty plate in her hands like it was gold. They started talking, just a little at first. The weather, how the roses in her yard used to bloom better. Then one night, she said something Ethan didn't expect. "I have a son," she said, eyes looking far off. "He moved to the city years ago, said he'd come back for me, but he never did." Ethan didn't know what to say. He just nodded and stayed a little longer that night. People started noticing, of course. It's a small town. You bring someone dinner more than a couple times, folks start talking. Not in a mean way, just people being people. At the grocery store, someone mumbled under their breath, "Why doesn't she just call her son? He's probably sending money, and she just likes playing the victim." Another woman near the produce said, "Maybe she wants to live like that, poor and dramatic." Some folks get used to being lonely. Ethan overheard one of the guys at the garage chuckle, "That old lady's got the kid wrapped around her finger." Probably tells him sad stories, so he keeps bringing her food. No one meant real harm. They were just talking between things. Between bills and broken down cars. Between long shifts and tired evenings. But it stuck with Ethan. Because they didn't know her. They didn't know what it felt like to see her waiting at the door now, holding that empty plate like it meant something. They hadn't heard the way her voice caught when she talked about her son. He didn't bother explaining to anyone, What would he say? That she didn't ask for anything? Not even once? That he just couldn't ignore it? Instead, he just kept doing what he was doing. A quiet act, every evening. One plate, one small gesture. Because maybe, in a world too busy to notice people like her, just noticing was the most important thing someone could do. Eleanor never shared much about her past. Not at first. But over time, with each quiet meal on the porch and each evening that passed without judgment, she began to open up. One night, as Ethan handed her a plate of rice and grilled chicken, she spoke more than she had in weeks. "My son's name is Nathaniel," she said softly, staring at the plate instead of him. "Smart boy. Too smart for this town." Her words came slowly, like they were being pulled from somewhere far away. She told Ethan how Nathaniel had always dreamed big, talked about building something important, making a name for himself. When he got into college out of state, she had no savings, no help. So she sold her upright piano, the one she had owned since she was a teenager. "That piano was the only nice thing I ever had," she said, her voice cracking just a little. "But I didn't think twice. He needed the money more than I needed music." Ethan didn't speak. He didn't know what to say. She went on, telling him how Nathaniel had promised he'd come back for her, promised he'd write, send pictures, maybe even bring her to the city one day. But the letters never came. The phone stopped ringing. She didn't even know where he lived now. She never asked anyone for help. She just kept waiting, hoping that someday he'd remember. And maybe that's what hurt the most. Not the silence, but how long she kept believing it would end. Ethan looked at her then, and he didn't see someone dramatic or helpless. He saw a mother who gave everything she had and asked for nothing in return. And deep down, a part of him wondered how someone could be forgotten so completely by the person they loved most. A few days after Eleanor had quietly told Ethan about her son, the neighborhood felt unusually still. She hadn't brought him up again, but the memory sat between them during every short conversation. Ethan couldn't stop thinking about it, how someone could just forget the person who gave them everything. But far from that quiet street, in a city buzzing with lights and ambition, Nathaniel Green was about to remember. His face was all over business news, a tech founder rising fast. That week, a national network pitched him a story, from humble beginnings to billion-dollar success. They wanted to shoot a hometown documentary, walk through the places that shaped him, the old house, the school, the street that raised him. Nathaniel said yes. It sounded clean, nostalgic, powerful, the perfect brand moment. But he never mentioned his mother, never told the producers to visit her house. Maybe he assumed she was gone. Maybe he just didn't want to face her. Either way, 2 days later, a sleek black limousine rolled down the cracked street, so out of place it made people stop what they were doing. Behind it came a van marked with a film crew's logo. Lights, cameras, a director shouting call times. Ethan watched from his porch, wiping grease from his hands, confused. Then the door opened, and out stepped Nathaniel Green, suit perfect, smile rehearsed. People clapped politely. Someone whispered, "That's Eleanor's boy?" Ethan blinked, stunned. Across the street, Eleanor sat very still on her porch, her hands folded in her lap. Her eyes locked on her son, but he didn't look her way. The crew led him toward the school. Ethan felt heat rise in his chest. He walked over to the director. "You're filming a hometown story?" he asked. "Then why are you ignoring the only person who never left?" Nathaniel stood near the school gates, surrounded by camera flashes and producers tossing him lines. "Walk slower," one said. "We'll dub in the voiceover later." His smile was smooth, polished. But Ethan couldn't take it anymore. He stood across the street, fists clenched, watching the man laugh and pose like he was proud of where he came from, while the person who raised him sat just a few feet away, completely ignored. Eleanor hadn't moved. She sat still, her face unreadable, her hands folded like always. Ethan stepped forward. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. "Hey!" he called, loud enough for the whole crew to hear. "You're filming the wrong story." The cameras turned. Nathaniel looked up, confused. "What?" Ethan pointed toward the porch. "She's been waiting for you for years. She sold her piano so you could leave this town. And you did, but you never came back. She waited. Every single day, a hush settled over the block. The crew froze. Neighbors peeked out from behind curtains. Ethan kept going. You built your empire, sure. But while you were eating steak, she was reheating soup. While you were taking interviews, she was praying you'd remember she existed." Nathaniel stood there, frozen, the lines he'd practiced falling apart in his throat. Then Eleanor's voice cut through the silence, soft but clear. "Don't blame him," she said, her eyes on the ground. "He's still my boy." That broke something in the air, not anger, mercy, a kind of love that made the rest feel even heavier. Nathaniel's jaw trembled. His chest rose like he couldn't catch his breath. And for the first time in a long, long while, he looked at his mother, not like a billionaire, not like a public figure, but like a son. And all the cameras kept rolling. In a world where success is measured by numbers, by titles, by how high you can climb, one young man reminded us that true greatness often looks a lot simpler. It's a warm plate on a cold night. It's listening when no one else does. It's choosing kindness when no one's watching. Ethan didn't have much, but what he gave mattered. And Eleanor, though forgotten by the world, never stopped believing in the love of a child who once held her hand. In the end, it wasn't money that healed what was broken. It was memory, forgiveness, and a choice to do better. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can give isn't a mansion or a name in lights. Sometimes it's a knock on the door, and a bowl of soup that says, "I see you." And that, more than anything else, is what makes a story worth remembering.